Hello everyone, let us create a matte painting of Mars rover in Photoshop. So let us start. Let's first create a document, an A3 size document, and let's give it a name, Mars rover. And let's create a document with a transparent background. Right. So then the next step is, so we will now just get this image of the ground, and we will drag this image inside our document. We'll scale it. We will just take a duplicate of it and we can then merge these two layers, and we will also use the spot healing brush to remove this seam so that there is a perfect mixing or blending of two images. And now here we have a ground, the land of Mars, and we can also take one more duplicate. Just will keep this duplicate over here. Just we can keep it till here, right? And again we will merge these two layers, and we will select the spot healing brush, and we can remove this seam, right? And we can remove some unwanted pieces so that it doesn't look like some elements are repeating, right? So now we have completed the ground. Now the next step is, we will now get the image of sky. So we'll just drag this sky onto this document, and we will just keep the sky behind the ground, something like this. And we can just slightly make the ground small so that the sky is clearly visible, right? So something like this. And we will rename the layers ground and sky, right? Now we will get some rocks and mountains, and we will place them on this ground. So let's first get this particular rock. So we'll just select this rock, and we'll drag it. We'll place it over here. And the next thing what we'll be doing is, if we observe closely, we can see some fringes around these rocks, white color fringes. Let's get rid of those fringes. So the way to do is, we will just hold Ctrl and click on the layer thumbnail, or we can also use Command and click on the layer thumbnail if you are using Mac. And now we'll go to the select menu, and in select menu we need to select modify, and here we have the option contract. We will contract by 3 pixels, and we will inverse the selection, and we will simply hit delete. So we can see now the edges of this rock are very sharp. Then what we'll be doing is we'll apply a mask to this, and we will just erase the bottom portion properly so that it looks like it is blending properly with the ground. So we can increase the flow value here. Right. The next thing is, see this rock color is totally different. The ground color and the rock color are totally different. So we will make the rock more reddish, or we will change the rock color to the ground color. So the way to do is, so we will first get a selection around the rock, and now we'll just take a new layer above the rock layer. We'll just pick the color of the ground, and we'll fill the new layer with the color, with the rock color, and we will select a blending mode. Mostly we can select hard light, or let's say color. Color looks nice, and we can slightly reduce the opacity if we don't want the color to be too bright. We can also try other blending modes such as overlay or multiply, but I think the best blending mode is color. So we will stick to this color. Right. Now we will merge these two layers, and we'll also apply a mask to this, and we will erase the bottom part, something like this. Right. This looks better. And now we will just right click on the mask thumbnail, and we'll select apply layer mask, and we'll rename the layer rock. Now we will put some more rocks on the mask surface. So what we'll be doing is we will get this rock. I have already selected this, so we'll just drag it inside our mask document. We'll just scale it, and we'll also try to remove the fringes around this rock. We don't want the fringes to be clearly visible, so we can shrink the selection. So we'll get a selection around this rock, and then again we'll go to the select menu, and in select menu we'll select modify, and we'll select contract, and we can contract this time by 2 pixels, and we'll invert the selection, and then we will hit delete. So we can see the edges of this particular rock are also sharp. We can slightly increase the size of this rock because it's close to the camera. Right. And we can just rename it front rock. And we will also do the same thing. We want a color matching. The color of the ground and the rock are not matching. So what we'll be doing, we will just get a selection around this rock, take a new layer above the rock layer, fill the new layer with the color of the surface, mask surface, and then we will just use a blending mode. We can use hard light this time, and we will slightly reduce the opacity, so just a little bit, so this looks better. Right. And now we will merge these two layers, and we will again rename it as front rock, and we will apply a mask to this. We'll select a brush, soft rounded brush, make sure that we have a black as the foreground color, and we will just erase some portions of this rock so that it blends properly with the ground. So something like this. Right. Again, we can just right click on the mask thumbnail, and we can select apply layer mask. Right. Now we will get one more image of a rock. So we can get this image if you want. Here it's a small rock actually. It looks somewhat like a mountain. So we'll just select it and we will just drag it. We'll place it over here. We'll place it in between the front rock and the rock that is behind. You can just scale it. Right. Then we will do the same thing. We will just take a layer above this rock layer, and we will also fill the layer with the ground color, and we will blend the ground color with the bottom layer. So we'll just select I think we can select color looks better, right? And we can slightly reduce the opacity, and now we'll merge these two layers and we can rename it middle rock. And we will also apply a mask to this. We'll select a brush tool. We'll just erase the bottom portions here. So something like this. So now we'll get this particular image of a mountain. So we will just drag it. So this mountain looks very big. We will keep it behind all the rocks, and we can just make it small, so it's a little bit far away. We can also select this particular rock and we'll keep it to the right side, and then we'll just keep this mountain a little bit behind. We can make it small, so something like this. And we can slightly increase the size of these rocks in comparison with the mountain that is far away. So something like this. We have to adjust these rocks in proportion with each other, adjust the size of these rocks and mountains properly so that there is a perspective created, right? And we will also change the color of this mountain which is behind all these rocks. So what we'll be doing is we'll just control and click on the layer thumbnail, or command click on the layer thumbnail, and we'll take a new layer above this mountain layer. We'll fill the layer with the same color, the ground color, and we'll just use a blending mode. Let's try a blending mode that blends properly. So we can select any blending mode here. So I think even for this, color blending mode looks fine. So let's try to reduce its opacity a little bit. Right, and now we'll merge these two layers. We can also take one more duplicate and we can try one more blending mode like multiply. Now this looks better, and we can slightly reduce the opacity here. Right, now it perfectly matches with the ground. Now we'll merge these two layers and we'll rename it back mountain. Right, we'll apply a mask to this and we will just erase the bottom portion of this mountain. So just we will increase the size. Right, this looks better. Now we will get the rover, we'll place the rover. So we'll just find the rover image. The rover image is over here. We'll just drag this image and place it over here. So this is the rover, and we can also just apply mask to this rover, and we'll select a soft rounded brush. Make sure that we have black in the foreground, and we'll just erase the bottom portion so that this rover looks like it has landed on the Mars surface, something like this. Right. The next step is we'll also get the image of a satellite, or we can say a spaceship, just a small portion of the spaceship. Let's check. So this is the spaceship. So what we'll be doing is we will just drag this, we'll place it over here, we'll scale it down. You can just try to position it properly. You can check which place is appropriate for it. Okay, this looks better. Right. So now we got the objects. We can put more rocks or anything if you want. But now what we'll be doing is we'll just create some foggy effect. So for that, what we'll be doing is we'll first start with the back mountain. We'll create a layer above the back mountain, and we will select a brush. This time we'll be selecting a powder brush. So I will provide the link for this brush in the description. So what we'll be doing is we can just select a color, something like a light reddish color, which is not too white, and we can reduce the flow amount to, let's say, 30%, and we can just create a foggy look, so something like this. So we can slightly reduce the flow here, so we can just slightly paint the fog, so something like this. And then we'll do the same thing for these particular rock. So we'll just create a layer above this rock layer, and we will create the same fog, so something like this. Just a mild fog. We can slightly reduce the opacity. Right, and we will do the same thing for this middle rock. We'll create a layer above this rock, and then we can just slightly change its angle of the brush, and we can just create a fog, something like this. We can make it a little bit dark if you want, and we can slightly increase the flow amount, something like this. And we can just reduce the flow amount here, and we will also select just a small or let's say a light color, and we will just put this fog over this rover, something like this. And we can just slightly reduce the flow amount, something like this, so that the fog is not too intense. Right, something like this. And the next thing what we'll be doing is, so we can actually get some more rocks and place them, but it's okay, we'll stick to these things. So the next thing what we'll be doing is, we will just apply a curves adjustment layer on top of all the layers, and we'll reduce the brightness, so we can see, we can reduce the brightness, and then we'll also apply a hue and saturation adjustment above all the layers. And then what we can do is, we can try to just colorize everything here. See, we have removed the natural color here, but we don't want this unnatural color. We will just find a color that suits our image, so somewhere over here, but something like this. But what we want is, we need to invert the mask for the hue and saturation. We simply need to hit Ctrl I in PC or Command I in Mac. Right. And now what we'll be doing is, we'll select a brush, we'll select a soft rounded brush. We want this artificial color to be mild. So we can just slightly increase the flow value. Let's keep it to around, let's say 40%. And we can just paint that particular unnatural color. Just we can paint, so we can see here. Right. Then the next thing what we'll be doing is, we will select a color lookup adjustment layer, and with this one we can actually apply some presets. So let's find an interesting preset. So we can start with this tension green, so you can see here. We can also try teal orange. We can try this edgy amber, so you can see here. We can select any interesting one. So I think we can select one of the interesting presets here. So for me the best one is going to be, let's select teal orange, or let's select tension green. Okay, this looks better, but we don't want this effect to be too intense. So what we'll be doing is, we will inverse the mask for this color lookup adjustment, and we want the effect to be mild. So with a less flow value, we'll just paint. We'll just paint on some places. That's it. So something like this. And then what we can do is, we will also apply a color balance adjustment. We can just try to increase the yellow amount, and we can also try to neutralize the yellow amount by increasing the green and increasing the red. So something like this. And also we will inverse the mask for the color balance, and we will just apply a mild effect. So something like this. Something like this. So the last thing what we'll be doing is, we will also try to apply a brightness and contrast adjustment, and we can just increase the contrast here, so we can see the change. We can also try to just reduce the brightness a little bit. Right. So here we have created a matte painting of Mars rover. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Please do like, subscribe, share, and if you have anything to say, do comment. See you again.